When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us, at our stupidity. And now they're beating us economically. They are not our friend, believe me. But they're killing us economically. The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. Thank you. It's true. And these are the best and the finest. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting. And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East. But we don't know, because we have no protection, and we have no competence. We don't know what's happening. And it's got to stop, and it's got to stop fast.
Legitimate gaffe, but he is part of a campaign and of a ticket that has made it its purpose to attack Hispanics, to attack Mexicans from day one. And so he had to walk on eggshells. What's outrageous about it? What was the first thing the man said June 16th when he first launched his campaign? That Mexicans were rapists. That's what you should find outrageous.
That's not what he said.
Oh, listen, it's
That's
on
not
video.
what he said.
For you to go on TV and say what everybody has seen for the last 16 months not to be true makes you seem insane. That is what he says. The video is there. The transcript is there. We know he said Mexicans are rapists and some are good people too. And that is the part you should be outraged by, not by me bringing it up.
Actually, he said that illegal immigrants were committing rape. He didn't say anything about the way they
He didn't say Mexicans were rapists.
That's not what the transcript says. The transcript says,
it's outrageous.
As close as I can get it, is that when Mexico sends its people, they send over their worst, their
and he was speaking in the context of illegal immigration.
But he's still
that was about illegal immigration.
But he's still talking about Mexican. Is he not talking about Mexican people when he says that?
He's talking about Mexican illegal immigrants.
And what was he talking about when he went after Judge Curiel? What was he talking about when he dismissed the ability of an Indiana-born judge to do his job fairly because he happened to be of Mexican descent, because his parents happened to be Mexican? Yeah. Was that outrageous, too, for me to bring it up? Or did you not hear that either?
What up? Good morning, man. It's Latino Patriots, Latinos for Trump. Just want to touch on some racism things here that the media's always blown out of proportion. I want to talk about Trump and this Judge Curiel nonsense, man. You know, he questioned, supposedly media said because he was Mexican he couldn't judge right. Well, let's get this right. He's questioning the judge's connections to La Raza, where these people provided free legal counsel for illegal immigrants. So obviously the judge is at risk for having some kind of bias. So Trump didn't question his judgment based on being Mexican alone, but, you know, having these connections with these pro-illegal immigrant groups. So it's a justified question. Let it go. Stop pushing the racism card. It's a bunch of bullshit. Because when O.J. Simpson had an all-white jury, what did they do? They questioned it, they complained, and he ended up getting like a 9 African-American jury panel. So Trump was absolutely justified in questioning the heritage of the judge. As you can see, George W. Bush's Hispanic Attorney General agrees with Trump's questioning. So take that, liberal media. You guys are full of crap. Latinos for Trump, like we said, we're here to destroy your narrative, so you better watch out. Get out and vote for Trump. We got to defeat Hillary Clinton.
No, I heard it. I also think the judge had no business on that case. I think Mr. Trump didn't litigate his position very well, and I think that he could have chosen different words. But, Anna, for you to sit here and call Donald Trump a flat-out racist is outrageous.
Well, let me do it again, and let me do it in 2 languages. Es un racista. He is a flat-out racist, and it's what he's played on for 16 months. He is a bigot. He is a racist. He is a misogynist. He has said horrible things about women. He has said horrible things about immigrants, about Hispanics. He has yet to say one good thing. immigrants, and for you to shake your head and tell me that I'm the outrageous one is what outrages me. Republicans need to speak up, and people need to know that not all Republicans are represented by the hostile, vile voice of Donald Trump.
So, Matt, let me bring you in here. So to Anna's point about maybe, you know, Mike Pence or people on the campaign trail should be more careful with their words, especially with saying that Mexican thing, because then this is what happens and policy does not get discussed.
Yeah, of course, I think so. And I think that the context of the Trump campaign means that you don't have there's not a lot of grace.
We put out a statement today. We watched this, and it's impossible to watch this gross incompetence that I watched last night. And we put out a statement a little while ago, and these people are going crazy. They won't report it properly. Shall I read you the statement? Donald J. Trump is calling for, now listen, you got to listen to this one because this is pretty heavy stuff, and it's common sense, and we have to do it. Remember the poll numbers, 25%, 51%. Remember the poll numbers. Okay, so remember this. So listen. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have no choice. According to Pew Research, among others, there is a great hatred toward Americans by large segments of the Muslim population. Most recently, a poll from Center for Security Policy released data showing 25% of those polled agreed that violence against Americans, these are people that are here, by the way, people here, 25, not 1%. By the way, 1% would be unacceptable. 1% is unacceptable. 25% of those polled agreed that violence against Americans here in the United States is justified as part, think of that, as part of the global jihad. They want to change your religion. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. Not going to happen. As part of the global jihad, and 51% of those polled agreed that Muslims in America should have the choice of being governed according to Sharia. You know what Sharia is? 51%. Sharia authorizes, and look, this is, I mean, it's terrible. Sharia authorizes such atrocities as murder against non-believers who won't convert, beheadings, and more unthinkable acts that pose great harm to Americans, especially women. I mean, you look, especially women. Tough stuff. And we have a president that won't even mention the term. And you're talking about numbers like this. Mr. Trump stated, without looking at the various polling data, it's obvious to anybody the hatred is beyond comprehension of such a big portion. Where the hatred comes from and why we will have to determine. We're going to have to figure it out. We have to figure it out. We can't live like this. It's going to get worse and worse. You're going to have more World Trade Centers. It's going to get worse and worse, folks. We can be politically correct and we can be stupid, but it's going to get worse and worse. Until we are able to determine and understand this problem and the dangerous threat it poses, our country cannot be the victim of horrendous attacks by people that believe only in jihad. These are people who only believe in jihad. They don't want our system. They don't want our system. And have no sense of reason or respect for human life. They have no respect for human life.
I'm sick of this race and divide. It's always divide and conquer. It's a scam, and I know it's not going to get on CNN. Lucky enough, but I've been out here making sure that I express my support for Mr. Donald J. Trump. And I'm fighting back against people like Black Lives Matter, which CNN supports, along with the Hillary Clinton Foundation and the Bill Clinton Foundation, the traitors to this country.
What do you think about the fact that white supremacists support Trump?
It doesn't matter. That's the right to free speech. I'm sick of this race and divide, and CNN is perfect at doing that. It's always divide and conquer. People have the right to choose whatever they want. What the hell has that got to do with Donald Trump? He's not a racist. I'm sick of that. It's a scam, and I know it's not going to get on CNN. We're sick of you media.
What do you think about what he just said to you? That's maybe not a fair question to ask. You're just trying to associate Trump with racism.
He was never called racist before he started running against the Democratic Party.
I mean, is that a fair question to ask? Are you saying that Trump is racist because some racist guy supports him?
I'm just here doing my job.
Well, but that was your question.
That's a good question, man.
Yeah.
At least answer it.
Don't backpedal now.
Yes, because, Trump is not a racist. And again, it's the media who gives us those perceptions. You see, because the Democratic Party, they always control the black people. It's a plantation. As long as they're on the mammary gland of America, getting their food stamps, getting their welfare, and they're not dreaming for the stars. They're not, and society is killing that dream. They're killing that dream by this globalism. Hell with globalism. Because globalism takes away America's wealth.
Do Black Panthers support Obama, sir? CNN. Do Black Panthers support Obama?
Thanks a lot for talking.
You're welcome.
Really
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Good luck out there.
Do Black Panthers support Obama, sir? Sir, do Black Panthers support Obama?
Here with me now to talk about this and everything else, Martin O'Malley, former Democratic candidate for president and governor of Maryland, now a Clinton supporter, former Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, who backs Donald Trump, Ken Cuccinelli, former Virginia Attorney General, who has endorsed Ted Cruz, and Nina Turner, former Ohio State Senator and backer of Bernie Sanders. Governor Brewer, let me talk to you first. Some tough words from President Obama, calling Donald Trump a charlatan and a flim-flam man. Do you think that this ultimately might hurt him, Donald Trump?
No, I don't believe it. President Obama just always comes tearing after Republicans constantly, calling names and calling people bigots and racists, and that's their big comeback, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
That's actually an interesting point, though.
To see a president speak like that is offensive.
But we've heard President Obama this will be the third presidential election where President Obama has understandably gone after the Republican nominee. Twice they were challenging him directly. Is there kind of like a built-in numbness that the American public might have to this, given that he's gone after Mitt Romney and John McCain, and now it's Donald Trump? I mean, maybe they just tune it out.
And me.
No, I think
he went after you? Is that what you're saying?
There's something very, very different here, Jake. And Governor Brewer, President Obama doesn't say this about all Republicans, but he does say rightly that Donald Trump is a bigot, Donald Trump is a racist, Donald Trump, in fact, is making fascist appeals. That's why many self-respecting Republicans are not supporting Donald Trump for president. Look, being president of the United States is the toughest job in the world. And I can tell you, as someone who has worked with Secretary Clinton and competed against her, that she is a tough person who's ready to do this job. Donald Trump is an unstable charlatan who is appealing to the worst instincts in people. And I believe ultimately the American people are going to reject that. This is a very different sort of candidacy. This is not the party of Lincoln.
Martin.
Okay, Governor
Martin,
Brewer.
Yes, Governor Brewer.
You know, we need to discuss policy, and every
I'm
time
glad to do that. Let's talk about immigration, Governor.
With President Obama and Hillary Clinton, every time you disagree with them, it doesn't matter which subject it is, you're a bigot or you're a racist.
No, that's not
and
true.
I'll talk immigration until we go home tomorrow night.
Let me bring in Ken Cuccinelli.
Let's talk about immigration.
Governor, let me take one break here for 1 second. I want to bring in Ken
Governor Brewer
Cuccinelli.
is absolutely right about that. This is a fallback when you have a president who cannot defend his policies and their outcomes. And so he jumps immediately to the race card, racist card in particular. It's a common tactic for Democrats.
So have you endorsed Donald Trump?
I expect to vote for him in November. So,
you will vote.
But I have seen this. I've seen this tactic. I've seen it. It's not November yet. I've seen this tactic over and over and over. We've all seen it, and frankly, the media plays along with it. They publish it, and it's the first question we're talking about. Gives it legitimacy. Look, I supported someone else in the nomination.
We were just playing a quote from President Obama.
I understand that. He's got plenty. What you cover matters.
But what about
and he's got plenty of inflammatory statements for the Dems to go after.
That's very unfair to say that about the president.
Well, I'm not saying that about the president. I'm saying about Donald Trump. He's got plenty of inflammatory statements.
The president doesn't go off every day calling people bigots. But what he has said about bigotry and what Mr. Trump is shaking up within the American people is very real. And as a leader, somebody who wants to be the next president of the United States of America, he does have a responsibility not to inflame. Now, on the other side of that, though, as Americans, we do have to deal with racism. I mean, Mr. Trump didn't put a sleeper spell on folks who voted for him. I'm not saying everybody who voted for him are racist, but we have some deep-seated racism in this country that we need to deal with. But to say that the president plays to that, when Mr. Trump is the one that called him a the leader of the birther movement, trying to delegitimize his presidency, you want to talk about race? This is real, but the president is on to something that we don't have time for this.
Let me ask you a question, Governor Brewer. I get your point that every time, in your view, that Republicans do or say something that Democrats don't like, Democrats accuse them of being racist.
Right.
But have you heard anything from Donald Trump that you consider to be, at the very least, racially tinged or offensive on a racial level?
I think that Mr. Trump is new to the political arena, and that he has said things that he had to walk back a little bit, things that I wasn't comfortable with. But dang it, I get fed up that we hear over and over and over again from the President of the United States that every time somebody wants to support the Constitution and the rule of law, that we are out there because we are racist and bigots. And we that lived in Arizona have lived with diversity our whole life.
He doesn't
and
say
it's
that,
just
Governor.
unbelievable that says constantly.
But what about that time
Hillary does the same thing. Crooked Hillary is out there. It's ridiculous.
Let's look at what Donald Trump actually says. I mean, in the recent case, he was running that con and the flim flam to try to rip people off with Trump University.
Oh, please,
and the judge
Martin.
sitting in judgment on that case, Governor, was a judge whose parents happened to be of Mexican descent.
Not happened to be, they are.
They're from Mexico. His parents are from Mexico.
But the judge was born in the United States, and Donald Trump tried to say the judge isn't qualified because he's of a Mexican background.
Was that one of the?
Donald Trump hates Mexicans, that means that judge can't do his job. Now, surely, Governor, you can't agree that that is proper behavior for a man who's running for president.
Governor Brewer, I'm going to give you the last word, and then we have to take a break.
In that respect, I think that Judge Corral has a stunning reputation. And I don't believe that Donald Trump meant it in the manner that he said it. I believe that he felt that he was being treated unfairly in regards to this issue.
Because he hates Mexicans?
No.
I can't believe you're supporting Donald Trump, Jan.
Let's take a very quick break. Very quick break. Got to pay some bills. We're going to come back. Stay with us. We have a rather intense debate going on here. Also, if you want to be Donald Trump's vice president, you better call him now.
Needs to be asked.
Well, the question is also being asked. A lot of attention has been placed on his candidacy, Donald Trump, in the media. Now you have reports saying, listen, what about his supporters? What are we learning about his supporters, the new people truly that he is, to his point, bringing into the fold? Gabe Gutierrez, actually, Jacob one of our reporters, and I don't want to quote the wrong reporter here, was just out at the Trump campaign. I think we have the sound, and my team will have to tell me, where they spoke with some Trump supporters. Let's play what they said.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race baiting. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. You know, we got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man. And nobody paying David Duke no mind.
Clearly, let me just be clear here. Obviously, the majority of Donald Trump supporters are not African American. I don't know how many African Americans were in that building, but that is one person that we have chosen to cut that sound from, David.
Well, yeah, but listen, Donald Trump has...
Thank you so much. And out front tonight, Andy Dean, a Trump supporter who also worked for Trump for 7 years, and Van Jones, a former advisor to President Obama. Great to have you here with us. Andy, I'm going to start with you because we heard Trump say he's not going to use TV attack ads. But what do you think he means by that? Because he frequently sends out videos, tweets attacking his opponents on Twitter. Millions see it. Isn't that the same thing?
Well, I think he's being smart because he's not spending money on it. Right? And it's not really attack ads. He's differentiating himself on the issues. If you look at Jeb Bush, he's a total disaster on immigration. Plus, he's a low-energy guy. Maybe he has low T, we're not sure, but you can't put him up against Hillary Clinton. And even though Jeb Bush has raised $114 million, he's polling close to zero now, 3 to 5% in Iowa. So Trump is making those distinctions, and he's doing a good job of it without having to spend money on 30-second ads.
And Van, we hear Trump repeatedly call not only politicians but celebrities morons, losers, dumb, boring, overrated. Do you think that these personal online attacks are part of his draw? Do people like this? I mean, after all, he has something like 4 million followers, 4 times as many followers as his competitors.
Well, I mean, Justin Bieber probably has 20 million. Maybe he should be president. Look, at a certain point, this is good summertime entertainment, but it is very, very dangerous for us to imagine that the best way for us to figure out who should lead our country in a time of war, economic challenge, climate challenge, based on who's got the funniest one-liners and the zingers. What we really need to be doing at this point is asking ourselves the question. If a guy says on one day, I want to lead a positive campaign, and the next day puts out a despicable racist ad like the guy just did attacking Jeb Bush because he said one kind thing about Latinos, do you want this guy in the White House? At some point, we got to go beyond, is this guy entertaining, and say, is this guy fit to lead the country? And he's obviously not.
Yeah. Hey, well, this is Van Jones, right? It only took him 30 seconds to call Donald Trump a racist, and this is absolutely outrageous. He's attacking Jeb Bush.
No, I said the ad's racist. The ad is racist. No, the ad.
We know what you're implying, Van Jones. We're not done.
Here's the deal. If you take 1 or 2 or 3 people from a community of 11 million who are horrible people, admittedly, who are murderers, who are awful, and use them to define 11 million people, there's a word for that. It's called scapegoating. It's called racism, and it's wrong in America. Do you think it's
throwing
good?
out bombs
you think it's
here
good?
that are factually untrue.
How is it incorrect?
You're saying of the 11 million illegals that only there are 1, 2, or 3 criminals, and you just don't know the facts. We're talking about sanctuary cities in which these criminals are protected by liberals when they should be deported. I mean, do you want Kate Steinle's murderer to be in the United States, Van? Do you?
No, absolutely not. But here's the point. If we want to have a discussion, if we want to have and here's the deal. If you want to have a discussion about safety in urban America, let's have that discussion. But to make that be the signal way that we talk about 11 million people who are here is wrong, and you know it's wrong. If I would. He has a very strange way of showing it when every single time he speaks about
he loves Hispanics. He employs
I would
thousands.
love the guy that you worked with to be on television. I would love to say one kind thing about Latino community.
Andy, you're saying he loves Hispanics. He loves women. We've heard him say this even after the attacks of Megyn Kelly, and now he's on Twitter attacking not only one of his opponents but against a staff member, Hillary Clinton's top aide, Huma Abedin, who is also married to former Congressman Anthony Weiner, who who left Congress, as we know, in scandal. So let's take a look at this tweet that Trump put out. Huma Abedin, the top aide to Hillary Clinton and the wife of perv sleazebag Anthony Weiner, was a major security risk as a collector of info. So, Andy, Trump is now claiming Abedin passed along top secret information to Weiner. Why is he singling her out here?
Yeah, he's not claiming that. He's mentioning facts, which are Huma Abedin is very close to Hillary Clinton. We know, well, hold on. Hillary Clinton, today we learned, had another 150 emails that were marked classified that ended up on a personal server. Huma Abedin is her closest aide, and she's married to a complete sexual degenerate who can't control himself when it comes to technology. That's a national security concern if she becomes president of the United States.
How does that mean she's passing on classified information? How does that mean she's passing on classified information to her husband? How does that translate?
No. We are saying that it is a concern that Hillary Clinton treats classified information as if it's a joke. Huma Abedin, who talks to Hillary Clinton on this private email server, we know that because they're private emails back and forth, and she's married to a man who can't control himself online. What if Hillary becomes president? So it's very in bounds for Donald to make this distinction. He's done a great job doing it.
So, Van, do you think Trump needs to apologize?
Well, listen, I don't think there's any point in asking him to apologize. He hasn't apologized for any other offensive things that he's done. I do think it's something we got to look at seriously. Here's a guy who says this guy's a pervert. Well, hold on a second. I don't think there's any person in public life besides Donald Trump in the history of the country who's ever said, I would date my own daughter if she weren't my own daughter. If you want to go down the long list of crazy, strange, bizarre things he's said and done, here's a guy who's been married multiple times. He's attacking someone else for staying married through a tough time. I just think at a certain point, the entertainment factor here has to go away, and we have to start looking, is this the sort of man with the character? If he is concerned about American safety and security, for him to go in this direction with this tone is not presidential. That's the problem we have right now. He is driving down the standard for the whole country and discussing who should be president of the United States. That's very dangerous.
But the bottom line is he is still top of the polls, and that's the bottom line. He's resonating with people. Van Jones, Andy Dean, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Totally wrong.
Well, there's still a lot of people out there in the country tonight who still have that belief about Donald Trump, Van.
Well, look, first of all, congratulations. Both of you guys we're
not there yet.
Well, you're further than anybody said you would be. And I have enough class, and I was raised well enough to say when you outdo,
yes, sir, thank you.
When you outdo expectations, good for you. But there's another side to this. People have talked about a miracle. I'm hearing about a nightmare. It's hard to be a parent tonight for a lot of us. You tell your kids, don't be a bully. You tell your kids, don't be a bigot. You tell your kids, do your homework and be prepared. And then you have this outcome, and you have people putting children to bed tonight, and they're afraid of breakfast. They're afraid of, how do I explain this to my children? I have Muslim friends who are texting me tonight saying, should I leave the country? I have families of immigrants that are terrified tonight. This was many things. This was a rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls, it's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. I mean, we've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes. And Donald Trump has a responsibility tonight to come out and reassure people that he is going to be the president of all the people who he insulted and offended and brushed aside. Yeah, when you say you want to take your country back, you got a lot of people who feel that we're not represented well either. But we don't want to feel that someone has been elected by throwing away some of us to appeal more deeply to others. So this is a deeply painful moment tonight. I know it's not just about race. There's more going on than that. But race is here, too. We got to talk about it.
Well, and whoever wins tonight, I mean, there is such polarization in this country. Whoever wins is going to have a very hard time in convincing the other half of the country that they can be their president as well.
That's what I thought I knew yesterday, that I had no idea how deep
the divisions are, how real the pain is. And let me say, echoing Van, Kayleigh and
voices on this issue. This is back in 2011. Here's a look back.
Why, look, she's smiling. Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? And you know what? I wish he would, because I think it's a terrible pall that's hanging over him. Barack Obama should end this, and he should provide the public with a birth certificate. And if he doesn't do it, he's doing a tremendous disservice to the public. We'll have to see what, perhaps it's going to say Hawaii. Perhaps it's going to say Kenya. You know who questioned his birth certificate, one of the first? Hillary Clinton.
There's something going on. Look, there's something going on, and the words are not often okay.
What does that mean, there's something going on?
There's just bad feeling, and a lot of bad feeling about him.
Well, here's a twist today. Donald Trump's own running mate, Mike Pence, told reporters that he believes Barack Obama was born in the U.S. Joining me now, Barry Bennett. He's a former campaign manager for Dr. Ben Carson. He is now a Trump supporter. And also with us, CNN political commentator Angela Rye, also the former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. So good to see both of you. And Barry, let's just begin with why doesn't Trump follow in the steps of Mike Pence and say, all right, you're right, he was born in the U.S., done, over with, stop asking me?
Well, he probably should, right? But, the truth is, no one's really talked about this issue much for years, but it was a silly issue in the beginning. Obviously, it wasn't true, and, it was a mistake to talk about it years ago, but it would probably be a mistake to keep talking about it as well.
But then what about, I'm looking at you, and I'm also thinking of Dr. Carson and the fact that he told Tapper, yes, he should apologize, and perhaps even that would help him with the black vote in this country. What do you make of Dr. Carson weighing in?
Ben is a very strong moral person, so, he has the right to do so. But if I could give both candidates some unsolicited and value-priced advice, stop talking about each other. Start talking about America. It's hurting. There are real problems. That if you want to get elected, convince America you can solve these problems, not that your opponent is an awful person.
Angela Rye, what say you?
Well, I agree with Barry, first and foremost, that this is a silly issue. It has always been a silly issue, but if only it was funny. It really is no laughing matter. The fact that Donald Trump would work so diligently to discredit this country's first black president is not just unfortunate, it's very disrespectful. Not only did he start and end with the birther issue, he also questioned Barack Obama's transcripts and whether or not he ever graduated from Harvard University. He questioned whether or not Barack Obama was an affirmative action admittee, love affirmative action, by the way, of Harvard University. But that is highly problematic when you're talking about someone's and questioning someone's competency because they don't look like you. That is the real problem here. And Donald Trump, I think, has a lot of work to do in this space because he's got to demonstrate to people that he's not a bigot, that he's not a racist, and that he's not using racist rhetoric to pander to his very angry base right now. And that is why this apology is so important. And, Barry, that is why I agree with you and Dr. Carson.
Go ahead, Barry, just quickly. Yeah.
Something you just said, which, is kind of evolved in this political cycle, which I hope we can all bury out back when this is over. But you don't have to prove that you're not a racist, right? You have to prove that you are a racist.
No.
Yeah, no. You're in this country. We're innocent until proven guilty.
Unless you're on the Trump campaign.
You're demeaning the entire issue by
Barry,
throwing
but
it
here's
around
the thing.
with big brushes, painting everybody as a racist and a bigot. It's got to stop.
Barry, let me prove to you why he's demonstrated that he is either racist and or using racist rhetoric. So I'm going to do this quickly because this is Brooke's show and she's got things to cover. So quickly,
go girl.
He said that he was going to cover the North Carolina participant in a rally who punched a black man in the face. He talked about a Black Lives Matter protester who got beat up and kicked at his rally. He said that he got what he deserved. He took out a full-page ad of the Central Park 5.
I'm not finished.
Barry, I'm not finished. It has everything to do with race.
Oh, see,
he took out a
problem.
full-page ad of this. No, you know what the problem is? The fact that you all will be racism deniers and instead call us race baiters.
Don't go there.
That
Do
is
not go there.
I went
Do
there.
not go there. You don't have no idea what my family looks like. You have no idea what my family looks like.
I said
you cannot go there. You owe me an apology. You owe me an apology.
How do I owe you an apology?
I'm not a racism defender.
I didn't call
That is ridiculous.
No,
Yes, you did. You just did.
What I'm telling you is, you saying that I have the burden of proof is on me to say that Donald Trump is not a racist is false.
No,
Donald
that's
Trump
not what I
has
said.
demonstrated
That is not what I
that
said.
he is a racist or uses
That
racist
is not what I
rhetoric.
said. You have to prove someone is a racist. You can't just paint
He's
it with
proven
broad
it
brushes.
himself, Barry.
No, he hasn't. Come
Yes,
on,
he
that's
has,
ridiculous.
Barry. I tried to give you examples.
You're hurting
and
your
you didn't-
candidate.
No,
you're hurting your
he's
cause.
not my candidate. What I'm telling you is, we have to start owning that racism exists in this country and is real.
Amen.
And he pandered.
Amen. I have seen it.
pandered
I
to
have seen
racists
it.
throughout
It is.
this election.
But you
You're
can't
denying
go around
it.
calling everybody a racist without any
I didn't
proof.
call you a racist. I said that you're not owning the fact that racism exists and that
Yes,
your
yes,
candidate.
yes, I am. I'm telling you that racism exists. I've seen it.
Okay, good. And your candidate has used racist rhetoric to pander to his base. True or
Okay,
false?
so now, no,
And
no,
that
I
is
don't
where
believe
we
that's true.
disagree.
I don't believe
And that
that's
is where
true.
we disagree.
All right, we got to get to Donald Trump. I mean, comedians are probably just
Donald
waiting
Trump
to
is
serve
a
him up.
racist.
Yeah.
He's a racist, and anybody who listen, Paul Ryan basically said that's textbook racism. So what Paul Ryan actually said is a racist is better than a liberal. And if you say that, it's because you're not affected by racism. Everything we are, the people can have, we can obfuscate, we can do whatever. Liberals built this country. You are what you are because of liberals. And you can, and I was on with Joe Scarborough, who I adore. I don't agree with everything he says, but he brags about this being the party of Lincoln. When you got to go keep referencing the dude on the penny, you better update your resume.
Yeah.
Stop it. Everything you enjoy right now, you enjoy. Everybody they like now, they hated before. They hated Martin Luther King. Now they pretend like they love him. They hated Muhammad Ali. They didn't start loving Muhammad Ali till he was shaking, going up the stairs, doing the Olympics. And he was shaking so bad, like literally, I went home and blew my pilot light out. I was like, woo. But they didn't start loving him till he was no longer a threat. You don't get to be a little racist. You don't get to be a little pregnant. If I'm in a car, I commit a crime, the dude in the car with me pretends like he don't know, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
You're a co-conspirator. And if you know that he's a racist, you're a co-racist. Simple as that.
Has, to my mind, retracted your white lash with what you just said. No, that we have to not focus totally on the toxic stuff. But you should, and if you don't, you're wrong.
No, you raised it.
You are not. That's not the path for progressives. We've all agreed at the outset of this show that the path, which is Ellison's message, you say, is to go back to the Rust Belt and the rednecks. Well, you're not going to get there with climate change and Putin and all the rest of what you're talking
people
about.
in South Carolina who run hotels, who understand their self-interest. They will be overrun by rivers and water if they don't deal with climate crisis.
Yeah, we're just about out of time. You get to Ellen answer the white lash.
When I said, and I stand by it, I said that race was a part, and there was a part, that alt-right part, there was a part of a white lash. And if you listen to the whole quote, you would agree with what I said. So I don't take that back.
I did listen to it. At the end, you said, what do I tell the kids? What I would tell your kids, I'm a black man in America who went to Yale, who's written books, who served a president, now has
I'm a ninth-generation American, ma'am, and I'm the first one in my family born with all my rights. I'm a ninth-generation American. And so we have not escaped because I went to Yale all the problems of this country.
You should be a racial reconciler.
You should be ashamed of yourself to say that to me to my face. I've spent more time in this country.
Would I say it behind your back would be better?
Hold on a second. I spent more time than you have trying to be a racial reconciler in this country.
Really? How do you know that? Do you know anything about me?
Well, you apparently don't know anything about me.
Yes, I do know. Your daddy, your grandparents were teachers. Your grandfather was a bishop.
George, this is the problem that we have right now. It is, in fact, the case that there was a populist revolt in this country, both Sanders and Trump, but one of them was marbled through with this alt-right stuff. If someone like myself, who is married to a white woman, who has spent my entire life building bridges, can't point out the alt-right white lash reaction without being accused of being a racial polemicist, we're going to have a big problem.
And I would say, how do you know sense of decency to say that to a man who's been a healer? Throughout a horrific, brutal campaign, he has spoken sanity to power. And to those who
my deepest apologies. You don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about my healing. And I would say there are ways to get to reconciliation different from focusing on the toxic elements as you did on election night.
Make sure he gets in here as well.
This is Van Jones from CNN, Owen Schroyer, Infowars.com. Van Jones is going to explain to us why Donald Trump is a racist.
Now, here's the reality. I never said, and have never said, that Donald Trump is a racist, but for some reason, he feels perfectly comfortable putting those words in my mouth. Here's what I believe about Donald Trump. I believe that Donald Trump is not a racist. I believe that you asked the question, is Donald Trump a racist? I say Donald Trump is not a racist. I say tweets. But I do believe that when you're arguing for more empathy and more compassion, I'm for that. When you're arguing for more suspicion and more fear, I'm not for that.
Well, I would say that if anybody is trying to build fear and race bait, it would be your network, CNN, when you promote the Black Lives Matter protests that have been violent. We've had cops get killed, and yet there's a lot of rhetoric on CNN that supports the BLM movement and continues the racial divide in this country.